Hey guys, welcome to Walking with Disciples. It is Thursday, April something or other. What is it? Let's check it. April 30th. Look at that. Thursday. I knew the day of the week. I knew it was still April for, I guess, one more day. But Thursday, April 30th, we are in the book of Acts, Acts chapter 10. And we started a couple days ago on Acts chapter 10. And again, kind of put you in perspective. This is the moment. This is the change in the movement of God. Before, what we've seen is the gospel being preached to Jewish individuals or individuals that have converted to Judaism. The Ethiopian eunuch would be an example of that, individual that had switched over. Who was now a Jewish individual, circumcised and went through the rituals. And so we find ourselves in a moment in chapter 10 with two individuals, one being Cornelius. He's a centurion, captain of 100 individuals, who is praying at the ninth hour, about 3 p.m., the evening prayer time, what they consider the evening prayer time. And the angel of the Lord shows up and says, hey, send for Simon, who's called Peter, and in Joppa, and have him come. And then yesterday, so that's 2 days ago. So yesterday then, what we talked about on Wednesday was the Peter piece. So they're going to Peter. Peter's at the house of Simon the tanner along the coast, and around the noontime, or the third hour, which we consider about noon, Peter's up, and it says that he enters a trance, or he sees a vision of God letting down a sheet with all kinds of animals, both clean and unclean. And Peter says, no, Lord, I won't eat any of that. And God says, hey, don't call anything I've created as unclean. Don't call it common, right? Peter's bewildered, doesn't know what's going on. And about the same time, there's a knock at the door. Hey, we're looking for Simon, who's called Peter. And he goes down and he meets the individuals that Cornelius has sent the day before. It's about a 30-mile trip. And so we kind of ended yesterday there with Peter asking what's going on, inviting them in. And so we're going to pick up in the second part of verse 23. It says this. Now, the next day he rose and went away with them, he being Peter, and some of the brothers from Joppa accompanied him. So again, the Cornelius had sent two servants and one of the soldiers with them, and so they've gone to go get Peter. And so Peter's like, "Hey, I'm going with you." So the next day they go get ready to go, and some of the brothers from Joppa was like, "Hey, let's go too. Let's take a journey." Why not? Why don't we walk 30 miles? So they begin this journey to go to Sisera, which is where Cornelius is. And so the next day, because it's a 30-mile trip, you and I get in the car and we're there. They're walking. So the next day they show up, and following day they entered Sisera. Cornelius was expecting them and had called together his relatives and close friends. Right. So again, this is all happening in a couple of days. So day one, Cornelius on the ninth hour, about 3 p.m., has this vision, and immediately sends his two servants and a soldier on their way. Day one, right? So day two, they arrive around the 6th hour, the noontime prayer time, right? When Peter's praying, okay, you guys following this? When Peter's praying, and on day two, Peter's like, okay, cool, I'm going to go with you. And so they leave day 3. So they leave on their way day 3, and then day 4 they arrive to Cornelius. Okay, you guys got that? Started day 1. We're on day 4 now of chapter 10. And says that that Cornelius is expecting them, and it's kind of figured out, okay, if he's coming, he's going to come. And so he's called everyone together. He's called everyone he knows, right? It says his relatives and his close friends and said, hey, God told me to go get this guy Peter. He's going to come here and he's going to tell us something. So why don't you join me? Now, that to me is comical, because I don't know about you, but like, to bring my close friends and my family together and be like, I'm not quite sure when this guy is going to come. I'm not quite sure what he's going to tell us, but it's going to be good. I don't know how many people would show up. I'd hope they trust me enough that if I said the angel of the Lord, did all this, that they would show up. But he was so excited. Cornelius was so excited for what Peter was going to say, even though he wasn't quite sure what he was going to say, that he got everybody together. Man, you know what? I wish we were more like that. I wish we got so excited about the Bible. I wish we got excited about hearing the Word of God. Can I just tell you, Sunday church, this should be the best time in your life to witness to people right now, because most of them are at home, right? They're not doing anything else. So when church starts, why don't you invite them to church? Invite them to join in. Maybe they'll learn something. Maybe they'll hear the Word of God. I'm trying to preach the Word of God every Sunday. Even if it's not me, I don't care. Invite them to a church to hear the Word of God, right? We should be excited about it and going, hey, there's an opportunity. This Facebook should be lit up because we're talking about the Word of God. So God's going to move. We're two or more gathered. God's going to move. Cornelius was that excited. He's like, you know what? Peter's coming. Not sure what he's going to say, but God sent for him. So it's got to be good. I'll get off my soapbox. All right. So next, this is in verse 25. When Peter entered, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshiped. That, kind of makes sense. Like, man, this is the anointed of God. God sent his angel and told me to go get Peter. So this guy's got to be good, man. He's got to have something. But Peter said to him, he says, but Peter lifted him up saying, hey, stand up. I too am just a man. There's nothing. And, again, for those of us that carry the Word of God, that's you too, by the way. Again, anyone that's on listening to this, those of us carry the God, we got to understand we're just vessels. We're just men. We're just women. We're just carrying the message of God. We're nothing special. Okay. We're just instruments for God's glory. And so that's what Peter's trying to say there. And as he talked with them, he went in and found many persons gathered together. Now, this next verse, again, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. It says, and he said to them, you yourselves know how unlawful it is for a Jew to associate with or to visit anyone of another nation. Okay. So, again, if you were not Jewish, you did not hang out with Jewish individuals or vice versa. If I was Jewish, I'm not going to go eat with someone who's not Jewish, right? And so Peter's like, you guys all know, this is not lawful for me to do it. But he says, but God has shown me that I should not call any person common or unclean. To me, I don't know if Peter figured it out before this or if this was the aha moment. Because remember, yesterday when we read it, it said that he saw this vision and he was perplexed. He was like, what does this even mean? Is this really about eating food or what's going on? But we know at this point, Peter's got it. He's figured it out. Light bulb, right, went off in his head and he realized, wow, okay, it's not about animals, it's about people. That I'm not to call anyone unclean. He says, he says to him, so when I was sent for, I came without objection. And then Peter asks him another question. And this is kind of interesting because yesterday he asked the two servants and the soldier the same kind of question. Why are you here? But Peter says, I asked then, why have you sent me? He said, I asked these other guys, they told me about your vision, right? And that's why I came. But why have you sent me? And Cornelius said 4 days ago, about this hour, I was praying in my house at the 9th hour. So again, I talked 2 days ago, I think I talked about the idea that we should be praying often and just how important it is to schedule time with God. And he goes, about the 9th hour, I was praying, and he begins to tell him about his vision and that this man, an angel came, right? This man stood before him in bright clothing, and Cornelius, your prayers have been heard, your alms. He said, send for this man. So I sent for you at once, verse 33, and you have been kind enough to come. Now, therefore, we are all here in the presence of God to hear all that you have commanded by the Lord. Okay. Couple real quick things here as we think about what's going on here. All right. Peter's asking, why'd you send me? You know, what is it that you're expecting? Okay. So I want to make a point for you and I as Christians, those of us that call ourselves Christians, right? That when people are talking to us, okay, there is an expectation. They have an expectation. They have something, right? And it's important for us to understand what that is. Now, it doesn't mean that we change what we're going to say, but it may mean we change how we interact with that individual. What is their expectation? You know, and sometimes, let me use an example. Sometimes people are like, hey, I want you to pray for me, you know, and we can be like, okay, well, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to do it, blah, 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 right? But their expectation is a little bit different, right? And what I mean by that, sometimes people say, I want you to pray for me. And really what they need is they want you to listen. They don't want you to immediately pray for them and to go. You need to understand what their expectation is, because maybe they just need you to listen for a minute. They need to unload, right? And there are moments that we do, and then you pray for them. Other times there's individuals that will begin to unload, and what they really need and really want you to do is to begin to pray for them, right? And not just say, oh, that's, and I'll be praying for it and go. What their expectation is that you pray for them at that point. And that's really what, I think Peter was trying to get across at this point. He says, hey, why did you send me? I know that he already knew the story because he'd heard it the 2 days before, right? He already knew the story. So now he's just saying, what is it you expect? And then the other thing about it is the Cornelius side, which is again, is interesting. In verse 33, he says, so I sent for you at once and you've been kind enough to come. Now, therefore, we are all here in the presence of God to hear all that you have commanded by the Lord. Can I tell you, for us as well, for those of us that are called Christians, whether it's Walking with Disciples that you guys are joining me on, or church service or worship service or life groups or whatever we're doing, we should have the same expectation that Cornelius had. He said, we're here in the presence of God, two or more are gathered. We're here in the presence of God, and we're going to hear all that God has commanded you to do, what the Lord has commanded you to do. There is such an expectation from Cornelius, not knowing what Peter's going to talk about, not knowing that Peter's going to talk about Jesus Christ, the Messiah has come. He doesn't know. He just expects that God is going to utilize this man, Peter, to speak to him. And you and I should, again, two things at the end of this one. We should be at that moment where we only say what God commands us to say. But number two, we should have the expectation of Cornelius and be excited to hear the word of the Lord, no matter how it's coming out, whether it's in a life group or sermon or devotional, whatever it is. We should be excited about it. So tomorrow we're going to pick up with Peter. It says in the first verse we're going to read tomorrow is, so Peter opened his mouth and said, and we're going to talk about that. Love you guys.